On the outside, everyone noticed that Naruto stopped talking, yet none of the cage dared speak to even ask him what the problem was. Everyone could feel the divine, yet soul-crushing power of the shinigami slowly starting to radiate from the Uzumaki patriarch's body as his face turned angrier and angrier. The floor beneath his feet splintered before he addressed the cage. "The meeting is adjourned for now. I gotta go," Naruto exclaimed. "What? Why?" Kuretsuchi inquired. Unfortunately, Naruto didn't answer her question as he summoned his shinigami mask and placed it on his face. His shinigami cloak wrapped around his shoulders. The cage, Yukimaru, and Hanabi watched in awe as Naruto's blonde hair turned silver and his eyes illuminated with power. The summoner of the shinigami then dashed out of the room and flew out the nearest window. The blonde scowled as he floated in the air for only a moment. "Dan, stay behind and inform the cage of the situation," Naruto ordered. Dan immediately acknowledged the order and flew out of Naruto's body and down to the building. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki then held up a hand sign and unleashed a surge of Honsho, shaking the land of Iwagakure, along with its visitors and citizens. In an instant, Kushina came flying toward him, floating next to him with a frown on her face. Just like him, her usual red hair had turned silver. Her own cloak lay upon her shoulders, filling her with its power. "Sochi, what's the matter?" Kushina inquired. Sasuke and his team uncovered something troublesome. Shion and Amaru were captured, and the shinigami mask from the temple was stolen. It seems Shino had something to do with it. Pakura spoke with Shion and it sounds like we're dealing with the Otsutsuki because she was embedded with a Kama, Naruto claimed. Kushina's eyes hardened upon her son's news. "I see. Then we had better head there quickly," Kushina claimed. Naruto quickly agreed before he summoned Pakura. "Take us there," he ordered. Pakura quickly bowed to them both and flew off with the summoner of the shinigami and his wife close behind her. Pakura flew fast over the elemental nations with Naruto and Kushina close behind her. The leaves of the trees shifted in the air as they flew past. How did they find out about the mask? It should only have been told only to the Uzumaki, Uchiha, and Hyuga, Kushina said while Naruto narrowed his eyes. From what Pakura told me it sounds like Amaru trusted Shino enough and told him. He was reported to be cooperating with Obito. Either he's being controlled or his betrayal is real. We'll find out when we... Naruto suddenly stopped talking. "Pakura, stop!" The blonde roared. Immediately, Pakura obeyed and stopped flying. Kushina turned to her son. She looked at him, clearly confused before she felt the presence of great, almost insurmountable danger. The two Uzumaki turned their heads and they noticed that they weren't alone in the air. The Uzumaki patriarch noticed the two hooded figures from before, floating there just a few feet away. Acting quickly, Pakura flew back into Naruto's body while Kurama scowled. "Careful, brat. They don't look like they want to talk this time," the fox spoke. His white fur shivered with tension. The smell of battle came upon his nostrils and he recognized the sight of those eager for the lust of blood. The same was true for Morio. The former demon could sense their inner desires as well, and just the drops that he had managed to glean were enough to make his numerous heads tremble. "I'm aware. I don't know what would have happened to Pakura if she'd kept flying," Naruto replied while Kushina turned to face the two who suddenly stood in front of them. "So these are the two you spoke about. I see what you mean. I never thought I'd tremble from anything after dealing with Jashin, but my senses are warning me against them," Kushina whispered, her voice still filled with power. "Yeah, but they shouldn't be able to stay here. They told me that just them staying in this plane is enough to make the threads of the universe snap. Although, given that they're Otsutsuki, then something tells me that they don't want us interfering with that Otsutsuki group we were headed towards," Naruto whispered back. "Turn back, lower air. What the Great Will hath ordained no one shall intervene. Take one more step forward and we shall repel your advance. You would do well to heed our warning and do not think that simply because we cannot stand upon this plane for an extended period that we have not the means to deal with you. If you do not back away immediately, we will force you back," the male Otsutsuki said, the tone of his voice non-threatening to the untrained ear. However, it was the confidence in his speech that made the two Uzumaki wary. "And do not involve the matters of the gods unto our affair. Bring the lesser god and the great will shall intervene. While you might fell us, you shall suffer in the process, for your soul hath not recovered from its merger with the god of death. And do not try any of your feeble techniques. We exist beyond the realm of the elemental nations. Such abilities are but a mere annoyance, the female Otsutsuki replied, her gaze much more aggressive than the man's. Naruto and Kushina glared at the two before Kushina slowly drew her sword from its hilt. The sharp, long length of its metal glimmered in the sun. You give a lot of orders with a rather pompous attitude. Why are you here? Kushina asked. Rather than answer the question, the two Otsutsuki simply continued to stare at them. You will back away now, Uzumaki Naruto. Do not. The male Otsutsuki paused as Naruto instantly appeared in front of him with his sword drawn. The blonde swung his blade through the air before the male Otsutsuki turned his head and caught the blonde's sword with his hand. Immediately, Naruto and Kushina noticed the very world around them change. A blue sky with a sea of green forest slowly into a realm filled with stars and overgrown black pyramid-shaped pillars. The male Otsutsuki continued to hold the blonde's blade before he turned to his sister. Nanashiki, take care of the woman. I shall handle the lower air, the man said while the female Otsutsuki, Nanashiki, removed her cloak. As expected of an Otsutsuki, two horns protruded from her head while her eyes maintained their pupil-less shape. Yet, one of those eyes was fully black and the other fully white. You will regret this, wretch. Nanashiki claimed as she charged at Kushina. The redhead barely found the time to block as the realm ruptured. Kushina felt her entire body tremble. The mother and wife of Uzumaki Naruto felt her cloak flap from the force as Nanashiki's fist collided with her sword. Meanwhile, the male Otsutsuki turned to Naruto. You have made a grave mistake, lower air. From now on, you will know of a life worse than death at the hands of Otsutsuki Nanashiki, he said before a burst of chakra forced Naruto a few feet away. The blonde raised his sword and quickly unleashed the power of the Honsho within him. The blonde merged with Kurama and Morio, Kagura, and the rest of his summons. He held nothing back as his cloak lengthened, its ends turning into 9 tails like those of the Kyuubi. And I'll make you regret getting in my way. Whatever Sasuke and the others are suffering, I'll make sure you receive 10 times that. Naruto snarled. Nanashiki frowned before he grabbed his cloak and threw it off, revealing his abnormally muscular body. His eyes were just like Nanashiki's, however, there was a large red eye in the center of his chest filled with numerous tomo. Naruto quickly recognized it as a Sharingan variant. Nanashiki stared at the summoner of the Shinigami. The two then charged at each other. Drawing their fists back, they crashed into each other. Nanashiki and Kushina were violently shoved away from the force of the colliding blows before the latter took the opportunity to spin her body. She slammed her foot against Nanashiki's face, blasting the female Otsutsuki through 3 pyramid-like structures. She crashed into the ground before leaning up, nary a scratch on her. Damn, just hitting her is tough. It's like Sochi said. These aren't normal Otsutsuki. Then again, Kagura isn't exactly normal either. I'll have to do this carefully, Kushina thought to herself before she held up a hand sign. Her sword became coated in violet flames with their sapphire center. The flames of the end surrounded her sword before Nanashiki flew into the air. She patted herself down. The blessings of the lower god are wasted upon you, wretch. I expected more from a lower life form who managed to fell the god of slaughter. Enjoy this free lesson on how to utilize the blessings as a higher heir properly. The cost of this lesson shall be your very life. Nanashiki claimed. Kushina's glare hardened as Nanashiki raised her hand and ripped 100 structures out of the ground. She then swung her hand down and fired them toward Kushina. The Uzumaki matriarch raised her sword and swung it, releasing an arc of violet fire from her blade. Her eyes narrowed when the flames crashed into the structures, only to watch the structures absorbing the flames until they were all gone. Acting quickly, Kushina flew off as the massive pyramids fell upon her. She swung her sword and cleaved them in two, one after the other. Through the debris, she gasped when she saw Nanashiki appear in front of her. The Otsutsuki pulled her fist back and slammed it into Kushina's face. The redhead grunted before she turned into a puff of smoke, revealing one of the shards of the structures that her opponent used. Nanashiki frowned and turned her head where she saw Kushina floating above her. Yet, the former smirked when she saw Kushina brush the side of her cheek. Kushina touched her cheek and felt the taste of blood on her tongue. I substituted perfectly and yet she still managed to damage me. No, it's like her blow tracked me. I'll have to deal with this carefully, Kushina thought. Nanashiki turned to her opponent and grinned. Fret not. Your suffering has only just begun to flourish. On the far side of the mysterious plain, the air boomed as Naruto and Nanashiki traded blow after blow. The summoner of the Shinigami summoned 2 Rasenshurikens in his hands, each of them strengthened by the might of Kurama, Morio, Kagura, and the others. Shizenpo, Rasenshuriken, Rasenkohai, Death Sage Mode, Spiraling Devastation. Naruto roared as he threw the 2 shuriken at Nanashiki. The Otsutsuki watched the spinning blades slowly grow larger and larger, hurtling toward him at a pace that no mortal could so easily dodge. Nanashiki frowned for a moment, gazing upon the technique with a rather uninterested expression before he held up his hands. He was ready to intercept the cataclysmic jutsu until he found himself tied down by white chains. An immense weight of pressure instantly burdened his body. He lifted his head as the 2 shurikens slammed into his body, their force imploding the strange, colorless realm they all found themselves. Think not that this was enough. Such rudimentary techniques will not defeat these Otsutsuki, Kagura claimed as Naruto shifted the handle of his sword through his fingers. I'm aware, Naruto replied as the explosions continued. Yet, he noticed, in their force, that Otsutsuki Nanashiki continued to stand at the heart of it all. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki barely had the time to block the fist that was aimed at his head. He then pulled his fist back and slammed it into Nanashiki's stomach. A small smirk came to the blonde's face when he heard Nanashiki grunt. He then pulled the Otsutsuki's head up, crashing his fists into the man's face repeatedly. Each blow was filled with the flames of the end, coating the Otsutsuki's body in black seals. The blonde then twisted his body and slammed his heel over Nanashiki's head, blasting him into the ground below. His summons flew out of his body and landed on each side of the rupturing explosion. They sped through their hand signs before they slammed their palms on the ground. Seals spread along the mysterious realm from their hands. Immediately a pillar of celestial strength circled the explosion and soared high into the air. Inside the pillar, a door with the face of the Shinigami opened. The door opened and outpoured a stream of violet flames, changing the color of the explosion until it seemed as black as the void itself. Naruto gritted his teeth as he felt Nanashiki amidst the rupturing chaos. Even his summons snarled as they felt the weight of what seemed to be boundless power bashing against the pillar barrier that they had all erected. Finally, Naruto opened his mouth as Kurama mixed Honsho with chakra. Morio manifested himself as his numerous dragon-like head sprouted from Naruto's body. Naruto weaved a hand sign and opened up the barrier. Shizenpo, Bijudama, Iraguchi Tenshinpan, Death Sage Mode, Tailed Beast Bomb, Gateway to Divine Judgment. Naruto roared as he fired the Biju blast from his mouth while Morio released a wave of the flames of the end with it. Both blasts flew into the pillar and shook the realm with such force that even Kushina and Nanashiki. The ground seemed to cave in on itself, the pyramid-like structures collapsing against each other as they were blown away. Naruto's eyes squinted for a moment from the harsh light as the flames of the end continued to spread. Yet, what the summoner of the Shinigami didn't expect was for the flames to suddenly swirl about and launch toward him. The blonde found himself consumed in the flames until they washed over him. As his vision cleared, he noticed Nanashiki on the ground. Though the land looked destroyed, there wasn't a single scratch on him. He stared at the Uzumaki patriarch. In the end, he uttered one word. Disappointing. Otsutsuki Nanashiki glared up at the Kyuubi Jinchuriki while Naruto glared back. His other summons stared in surprise. They swiftly flew back to Naruto and floated at his side. This might be more problematic than we thought, Shikyo-sama, Gari replied as they all began to feel the power and celestial strength pour out of the Otsutsuki's body. Naruto's sword blazed with the flames of the end. The silver-haired summoner exhaled slowly as black lightning crashed through the ground. Sasuke frowned as he dragged an unconscious man into a dark hallway. He took the man's cloak and wrapped it over his head. You do know you're putting yourself at risk. Now is not the time for you to go off alone. Wolf claimed within the Uchiha's head as Sasuke lurked back to the lower levels of the cavern. He kept himself hidden, passing by and hypnotizing anyone who got too close. I am not going to hide away simply because my life is in danger. I would have never become a shinobi if I was afraid of such a fate. Besides, the Dobi needs to know what he's dealing with. The last time we were caught unaware, a bunch of cultists managed to summon that bastard, Jashin, into the elemental nations. If there's even a rumor of such a fate returning to us, then it must be stopped immediately. I will not allow anyone to wrench my family from me again. Sasuke returned as he made his way back down until he found himself in front of the massively large door again. He touched the door for a moment before he thought he heard someone approaching. Acting quickly, he ran up one of the pillars and hid himself in the darkness of the ceiling. He silently watched as a monk-like man was followed by the remaining members of the Akatsuki. Almost immediately, Sasuke felt himself shudder when he looked at the man. Even the kindred looked at the man strangely. Tread carefully, Uchiha Sasuke. This is no normal mortal. He bears the aura of an Otsutsuki. A very powerful one at that, Lamb claimed. Sasuke slowly nodded. I can tell. He doesn't feel normal at all. Even when he's standing against a chakra monster like Kisame, the others still seem to pale in comparison. Then there's that thing in that box. However, it doesn't make any sense. Why do I sense the presence of Honsho in him? It's like I sense the Dobi standing down there, albeit heavily diluted. Sasuke thought back to Lamb. Lamb and Wolf glanced at each other while Sasuke activated his Sharingan. He looked at the monk and a shiver ran through his spine. What the hell is that? Sasuke thought to himself. He swore that he saw 3 different energies swirling around the man in some sort of chaotic unity. White and black energies swirled about within in him malicious droves. A bead of sweat fell from Sasuke's face, especially when he saw the way the chakra from behind the massive door stretched out to reach for the monk's body. He soaked it in like a damn sponge, feeding off it to such a degree that it made Sasuke sick. What was even stranger was the fact that this man was even more powerful than the person who attacked them before. The Uchiha watched the door open, his eyes translating the movements of the lips of the Akatsuki and the monk. Since you're calling us, I assume that all your planning has finally borne fruit. Kisame asked with a sharp grin on his face, lugging Samahata over his shoulder. It has. The results aren't as profitable as I wished, but they are still worth it. Today begins the final culmination of months of planning, and you have all worked exceptionally. With Uzumaki Naruto occupied with the Cage Summit, this was the perfect time to begin. Should we continue to wait, it will not take long for him to realize that the Uzumaki priestess has been taken. In fact, his forces might already have infiltrated this base. Sasuke's gaze hardened when he read those lip movements. It didn't seem like they had been discovered, yet he couldn't hide this strange feeling of unease. As a ninja, he'd grown used to paranoia, yet none was stronger than now. He sucked his teeth and wondered if he should call off the rest of the mission. The only problem was that he had no idea when the others would find Amaru. He wasn't going to leave her here. The Uchiha shivered when he noticed the monk turn his head. The Uchiha moved quickly, holding to get behind one of the hanging stalactites. He hid behind one when Jigen stared up at the ceiling. His eyes narrowed for a moment until he turned his attention back to the large door. Sasuke snuck a peek and noticed the Akatsuki walk inside. Following behind them seemed to be about 3 people with hoods over their heads. However, leading them Sasuke noticed Shino, Amaru's teacher, walking with a rather confident, arrogant grin on his face. The Uchiha took the time to look at the man's chakra network and the frown on his face deepened. He's not under any genjutsu. It also looks like he's real comfy here. I think that solved the issue of his allegiance. That idiot's gonna have to really do a reorganizing of the island structure when he learns about this, Sasuke thought to himself before he noticed the hooded figure's head inside as well. He slowly dropped down and with a quick step, asserted himself into the group, keeping his head low. Sasuke stepped with the hooded group until he went inside as well. The large doors closed behind him as he lifted his eyes toward the room. As usual, he noticed the beast trapped in a large glass bowl seated atop the monstrously big, black box. He then noticed Obito take a step forward. I hope you know what you're doing, Obito claimed, looking as Sasuke noticed the monk stand in front of the black box. Either Jigen decided to answer with his actions or he didn't care about Obito's opinion in the matter. However, he simply stood in a summoning circle while the hooded figures approached. Sasuke approached as well, finding himself caught in imitating the group. They all stood around Jigen as the monk turned a glance in Sasuke's direction. That is the purpose of the Kama. The greatest strategists do not have disadvantages. Every situation is an advantage. The divine energy within me is immense, even grander than I dared dream. It's so enormous that even my body is breaking down just trying to hold it in. To that end, either we shall feed this energy to the box of ultimate bliss in the Ribi, or all energy shall become mine and I shall evolve into the realm of he who ascended first. And once I have evolved, I shall ascend you all with me. You shall receive the world that you wished for, Uchiha Obito, a reality fit for one such as yourself, Jigen said before he turned to one of the hooded figures. Begin, he ordered. The hooded figures didn't even notice. They swiftly sped through hand signs and Sasuke, with the help of the Sharingan, easily matched their pace. Given that he was the extra man, he figured that he could get away with adding no chakra into the mix. Thankfully, his guess was correct as the seal lit up. Unfortunately, the Uchiha and the kindred quickly noticed the chakra from the so-called Ribi and box of ultimate bliss siphon off the chakra from Jigen. One of the box's masks opened, its maw like a never-ending void of nothingness. The Ribi screamed in its cage while the ground beneath Jigen's feet cracked. Ha 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 ha. Amazing, I can feel it, every inch covering my body. This is the key to the evolution of the Otsutsuki. In the steps of Otsutsuki Shibai, we shall ascend beyond the very tethers which hold this very plane of existence together. All worlds, all planes, all realities, all existence belongs to the Otsutsuki, Jigen claimed as he found himself drunk on the power being absorbed and siphoned through his body. The Honsho within him battled aggressively with the dark chakra of the Ribi in the box, Jigen's body the vessel for them both. Yet, the dark chakra soared further and further, bending and twisting the Honsho around, corrupting it with so much essence that it seemed to rend in on itself. Dark swirls of chakra struck the ceiling and the walls. Those too slowly to move were quickly consumed by the dark chakra as Jigen's eyes gleamed. In the middle of his forehead, an eye appeared and Sasuke quickly recognized it by its numerous circular patterns around the pupil. The Rinnegan, Sasuke thought to himself before he heard Wolf snarl. What the fuck are you doing, brat? Stop him. Wolf roared. Immediately, Sasuke was sapped out of his reverie as he watched Jigen amassing more and more chakra, the Honsho somehow growing in response to its might. And, that was the time that Sasuke struck. He had no idea what was going on, but every instinct told him that it wasn't good. Before everyone could move, Sasuke quickly lunged forward. Chidori! Sasuke shouted as his left hand surged with lightning. Jigen turned his head as Sasuke thrust his arm through the man's chest. The force of the blow knocked the hood off his head and everyone gasped. Uchiha Sasuke! Obito snarled while Kisame dropped Samahata to the ground and grinned maliciously. Well, it looks like Jigen was right after all. Itachi-san's little brother actually managed to sneak in here, Kisame claimed. Strangely, Zetsu and the Regent were silent while the hooded figures moved to intercept the Uchiha heir. Sasuke turned his head to them while his Sharingan morphed into the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Instantly, a wall of black flames blasted over the hooded figures, making them scream as they were swiftly burned to death. Sasuke then pulled his fist out of Jigen's chest. In the back of his head, he heard the Ribi scream against its prison. Slowly, the theatrics of the Jigen's might begun to fade as the monk fell to the ground while Sasuke stepped over his body. The black flames of the Amaterasu slowly wrapped around the Chidori in Sasuke's left hand. The lightning chakra poured off his body and tore through the ground. As he stepped, his red eyes hummed with power, the glimmers of Honsho behind them. The Uchiha then grabbed his sword and swung it through the air, lightning cackling about in ever-increasing strength. Don't feel for him if you are. You'll all be joining him soon enough. Chapter 96. Quote, courage isn't having the strength to go on, it is going on when you don't have the strength. By Napoleon Bonaparte. Itachi, Konan, and Neji quietly moved through the tunnels. Having been separated from Sasuke and Tayuya, they tried to find the caravan they'd been following since they entered the cave. Unfortunately, there weren't too many tunnels and it was too dark. Itachi and Neji opted not to use their dojutsu too much. While the chakra drain was minimal, it would be better safe than sorry, especially if any sensors were around. They had managed to locate some rooms with either supplies or strange sealing formulas that were better left alone. If anything, the group thought themselves lucky that no one like the man who led Sasuke and Tayuya away had come upon them, thus allowing them to search at their leisure. Are you sure this is the way? Itachi inquired. Neji quickly nodded. It's rather hard to pinpoint given all of the chakra signatures around, but I believe this is the correct way, the Hyuga replied. Konan looked around the area. The caves had long since become underground pillars lined with stone walls and decorated columns. It seemed that they were still in an area where the hypnotized captives were allowed as numerous figures passed them by. Neji made sure to keep his head down the most. They all agreed that a Hyuga would be a dead giveaway to their team given that over half the Hyuga clan was a part of Uzumaki Naruto's forces. Luckily for the trio, one person lagged behind the others. Konan quickly subdued him while Itachi placed the man under a genjutsu. The group extracted information from him, but there wasn't much to gather. The man's mind was in disarray, a mere puppet at the whims of the cruel masters within the area. Finally, Itachi and the others let the man go. They watched him leave before the trio heard someone approaching, and very quickly at that. Someone's coming, Neji alerted. Konan and Itachi tuned their senses to the noise and all three suddenly heard screaming get louder and louder. Yet, their eyes slowly widened, especially Neji's, when they saw Amaru on a table get pushed past them surrounded by 3 or 4 men and women. Amaru? Neji questioned while Itachi and Konan watched them take her away. What's Amaru-san doing here? Konan asked, stealing her expression to hide her surprise. As a kunoichi, she was used to expecting the unexpected, yet even this seemed to be beyond what she'd imagined. Of course, that didn't make her any less worried. What was Yuri's cousin doing down here? Even more than that, why was she screaming? Had they done something to her? Konan felt her mind restless with possibilities. Itachi stared in the direction she went before he found his mind working quickly. I do not know, but it would be better if we investigate. It's better if we don't split up as we are still not sure how deep this place goes. We will follow after Amaru and the people who took her. Aside from rescuing her, she can hopefully provide information about how she was captured. Do we agree? Itachi asked. Konan and Neji nodded as the three quickly moved and followed after the group of people who had been pushing Amaru through the cavern. It seemed that the people taking her were too preoccupied with her condition to look anywhere else. The trio passed by numerous rooms and hallways, not even being able to look where anything was. They just followed Amaru's captors until the group saw them head into a room with a large door. What's wrong with her? No idea, but Jigen-sama wanted us to check on her. Apparently, she just started screaming. Itachi, Konan, and Neji leaned against the wall, glancing at each other as they heard the noises behind the door. I expected more from an Uzumaki. Fine, strap her to the table and let me work. All of you out. The person claimed as the trio noticed the doors open. They heard Amaru continue to scream in what seemed like pain as her captors walked out of the room. Itachi turned to Konan and Neji. He silently signaled to them both and they agreed to his unspoken plan. As the captors passed them by, Konan quickly subdued them by trapping them in paper. The captors didn't even get a chance to scream before they were paralyzed as Neji swiftly struck their chakra points with the gentle fist of the Hyuga clan. One by one, they collapsed while Itachi swiftly charged for the door. He slowly opened it just in time to see a woman harshly slap Amaru. Stop your damn screaming. What kind of Uzumaki are you? I've never met one more pathetic than you. Just when I was starting to have a good day. Alright, what the fuck's wrong with you? The woman asked as Itachi noticed Amaru finally stopped screaming. Judging by her posture, Itachi noticed that Amaru was very much awake. He quickly determined that either the Uzumaki was trying to trick the doctor or the slap from the doctor was an intentional cure. In the end, Itachi received his answer when he noticed Amaru glance at him. She slowly nodded when the doctor's back was turned. Itachi quickly, yet stealthy entered the room. Now, my little Uzumaki-chan. Let's see what we can do for. The doctor didn't get to finish when she turned around. As soon as she did, her eyes were swiftly covered with the Sharingan from Itachi. Her mind quickly fell into his illusion until she stood motionless. Itachi then turned to Amaru and undid the straps. Amaru-san, are you alright? He asked. Amaru rolled over and groaned. Other than a stinging cheek and a hoarse throat, I think I'll be fine. I'm glad our plan worked, Amaru said. Itachi noticed the young redhead seemed a little unsteady. Her face was flushed and she looked a lot worse for wear. She slipped off the table and slumped into Itachi's arms. Are you alright? He asked. Amaru groaned. I'm fine. Just a little sick, that's all, she returned. Itachi narrowed his eyes before he looked at the doctor who was still under his control. Let's get you out of here, the older brother of Uchiha Sasuke claimed. Amaru slowly nodded as Itachi removed any trace of their presence from the doctor's mind. He then led Amaru out of the room where Konan and Neji were waiting for them. Neji was the first one to approach. Amaru-san, are you alright? he asked. Amaru looked at Neji and smiled. You know, Itachi-san asked the same thing. I'm fine. Just a little wobbly, the redhead claimed tiredly. She then noticed Conan place a hand to her forehead. You're running a high fever, Conan said. Amaru chuckled mirthlessly. Yeah, she'd been told that enough for today. Yeah, I know. But listen, my fever is the last of our worries. Why you guys gotta go get Shion? They implanted a K comma inside her. She's in the lower levels, Amaru warned. Neji quickly addressed her worries with a pat on her shoulder. We know. Sasuke and Tayuya are heading down. Can you tell us anything else? He asked. Amaru was getting ready to speak, but Conan quickly asserted herself before her. I believe it would be best if we spoke somewhere else. In fact, I believe it would be best if we got Amaru-san out of here. As she is now, she'll draw too much attention like this, Conan advised. Amaru wasn't even about to deny it. What Conan said was the truth. She was keeping conscious, yet every second made her feel like she was about to throw up. Well, until. No, I can stay. Take me back through those doors. That doctor had to have things that I can use. While I treat myself, I can explain what I know to you guys. I hope I can also recover some chakra. I'm pretty low from that prison cell I was in, Amaru claimed. The others agreed and rejoined her in the doctor's room. Itachi hypnotized her once again while Amaru looked around the room. Unfortunately, given that the world had just been remade, there wasn't much in the way of modern medicine. However, the doctor had more than enough medicinal herbs that the Uzumaki could use. While she worked on making a quick medicine for herself, she explained what happened to her and Shion as well as the circumstances regarding Shino's betrayal and the stealing of the Uzumaki Shrine's Shinigami mask. Neji's face turned into horror as Amaru continued to explain the circumstances. She drank a bowl of something green which stung the back of her throat while she told her story. The further and further she went with her story, the more and more concerned Neji, Conan, and Itachi felt. Once she was done, the room was eerily quiet. Amaru-san, that wasn't the wisest thing to do, Neji said. However, he closed his eyes and eased his frustrations when he saw the torn and stricken grief on Amaru's face. It was likely that she'd been told that enough. Nevertheless, I believe I can understand how you could have fallen prey to Shino-san. None of us knew his true intentions. Not even Naruto and Kushina suspected him. Who knows what he was doing being as close as he was to all of us. Itachi-san, Conan-san, I believe we've been here long enough. I can guide Amaru-san out of the underground. I'm a hindrance to the mission with my eyes. Many will grow suspicious if they even look at me. I think we've discovered enough to warrant an investigation at least, Neji replied. The two former Akatsuki members spared each other a look. We have yet to find the caravan or figure out why they are kidnapping people, but the fact that they have kidnapped Amaru-san and Shion-san should be enough. The only problem is we have no idea where Sasuke and Tayuya are. They were heading to the... Itachi suddenly stopped when the group of four heard a puff of smoke. They looked down and noticed a small snake at their feet. The snake forked its tongue at them before it released a scroll from its mouth. Uchiha Sasuke has a message for you, it said before it quickly dispelled. Conan picked up the scroll and opened it. She frowned before she handed it to Itachi and Neji. It appears that it was as we feared. I believe we don't need to look into the caravan any further. This organization has discovered the Box of Ultimate Bliss, an ancient treasure of Kusagaker. I have heard tales of the box. Nagato actually wanted to go after it more than once, but we simply didn't have the manpower since Akatsuki was trying to build up its power, she said, her face tense. Neji looked to her. I have never heard of this Box of Ultimate Bliss. Is it really that formidable? The Hyuga inquired. Conan's face darkened. It was so formidable that Nagato considered using it as the weapon against the elemental nations instead of combining the Biju. He only went after the Biju because he could already control the Gedo Mazo. It would have taken immense chakra for him to control the Box of Ultimate Bliss. If every nation hears about this, they will all converge to try and destroy it no matter who is using it, the paper user claimed. Neji and Itachi turned their attention to Amaru, but the latter was the one who spoke. Neji, we will go with your idea. Let Amaru out of the cavern and we'll focus on tracking down Tayuya-san, Shion-san, and Sasuke. We'll also try and find the Shinigami mask that was stolen. Neji, once you're outside, send a message for reinforcements. We mustn't let them use the mask under any circum. Itachi stopped again as everyone felt the underground tunnel rumble and shake with tremendous fury. Amaru fell into Conan's arms while Itachi and Neji braced themselves against the wall. Itachi silently cursed when he felt a surge in Sasuke's chakra at the very bottom of the maze-like structure. What's happening? Neji asked, hanging onto the wall as the floor continued to shake, even breaking apart. The group braced themselves against the floor as the rumbling continued. I believe Sasuke has encountered some resistance. We clearly don't have much time, Itachi replied, his nails digging into his skin. Sasuke walked towards the group, lightning sprawling out of his body as he walked toward Obito and the others. You've all got one chance. Tell me where the mask is and maybe I'll let the Dobi decide what to do with you all when he gets here, Sasuke said, his sword pointed toward them all. The Uchiha heir immediately found himself surrounded not just by Akatsuki but also by Jigen's forces. Obito took a step forward. Uchiha Sasuke. The older Uchiha hissed while Sasuke gazed down at him. We've been looking high and low for you, Obito. For Kakashi's sake, I'll try and leave you with a working mouth to give him an explanation, Sasuke returned. He then turned his head and he noticed Kisame laugh. The shark man stepped forward also, lugging Samahata on his shoulder. It appears we have a rat in the tunnels. Tell me, Uchiha Sasuke, is Itachi-san here too? It's been a long time since I met a former partner. I'd like to see him again, Kisame said, a sly yet confident smirk on his face as he felt Samahata pulse within its wrappings. It seemed that the shark skin blade found the smell of Uchiha Sasuke's chakra rather enticing. Unfortunately for you, you'll never know, Sasuke said as he instantly appeared behind Kisame. His sword glimmered in the underground tunnel. Kisame turned his head in shock as did the others. What little Honsho poured into Sasuke's body unleashed itself, mixing with his chakra as he gripped his sword. Sasuke swung his sword, the roar of lightning staining the ground with streaks of lightning. Kisame raised Samahata to counter, yet all were stunned into silence as Samahata shrieked in sheer agony as Sasuke's sword seamlessly cut through it, not stopping for anything before all eyes saw Hoshigaki Kisame, the terror of Kurigakure, fall to pieces. His severed head rolled along the ground while his body sparked with the fleeting fragments of lightning. Samahata fell with a harsh thud as Sasuke turned to the others. He killed Kisame that quickly. How could that damn boy have gotten so strong in just 7 months? Obito inquired. Sasuke briefly noticed the people under Jigen swiftly descend on them. The young Uchiha threw his sword into the air before he engaged his adversaries. Sasuke weaved through them all, striking and knocking them down one by one. A punch here, a kick there, a room full of over 20 men and women slowly dwindled to a handful as Sasuke displayed his talent in the arts of taijutsu. He jumped over the back of one and broke his arm before descending on another. He broke her jaw and slammed his heel down, crushing a man's skull against the hard pavement. Sasuke then turned and blocked a kunai from Obito who had come into the battle. The two Uchiha stared at each other, Sharingan to Sharingan. They backed away and Sasuke skidded on the ground, being forced to jump into the air when Zetsu appeared from underground, his vicious jaws nearly clamping down on Sasuke's leg. The young Uchiha blew through several hand signs before he sharply inhaled. Kaden. Amaterasu. Ruka no Jutsu, Fire Release. Amaterasu, Dragon Fire Technique. Sasuke exclaimed as he blasted a stream of fire from his mouth. The fire crashed into the ground, forcing those still alive to jump back as they noticed the orange hue of the flames quickly turned black, empowered by the all-consuming furnace of Amaterasu's flames. Obito quickly watched the flames draw near. He was ready to teleport Zetsu and himself out of the area before everyone noticed something was wrong. Sasuke frowned as the kindred quickly became alerted to the mass of swirling energy fluctuating behind them. Everyone watched as the black flames of the Amaterasu redirected their assault. They flew into the air and were swiftly absorbed until nothing remained in the third eye on Jigen's forehead. I was wondering how long it would take you to act, Uchiha Sasuke. I'm glad that I wasn't disappointed. Even I thought myself dead by your hand. However, you have given me a glimpse to the evolution of the Otsutsuki will, and you will be the first story of tragedy in the chronicles of Uzumaki Naruto's reign upon this world. Know that though your world shall kneel swiftly, I grant you the honor of never seeing it. For an inferior creature like you, it's more than you deserve. Sasuke barely had time to think, breathe, expect, or even react. The Uchiha barely managed to summon the ribcage of the Susanoo before it was shattered into 1,000 pieces as he was blasted out of the room from the punch thrown his way. He crashed into the ground and skidded along the dark hallway and into the side of the wall. The Uchiha grunted in pain as his breath was taken away before he slumped to the ground. Wolf and Lamb looked on in surprise before the former cursed. "Damn it, Uchiha, get out of there!" Wolf roared while Sasuke quickly tried to reorient himself. He leaned up with a heavy groan, shaking his head as he watched Jigen step out of the cloud of smoke, yet he no longer looked human. What was once a monk was now a fully realized Otsutsuki. The frown on Sasuke's face deepened before he stood to his feet. His eyes zoned in on his target. More specifically, he noticed the long, curved horn resembling a crown around the man's head. The Uchiha clenched his fists when he spotted the yellow and black wheel-like pattern in the man's right eye while his left held a Byakugan. His middle eye was one like Sasuke had never seen, a sort of inverted coloring mixture of the Rinnegan and the Sharingan. So that's Otsutsuki Ashiki, the one Naruto and Kagura warned us about, Sasuke thought to himself as he brushed off the dirt from the side of his face. He had heard what Wolf shouted at him, but Sasuke already knew that was impossible. Even from where he stood, he could feel the chakra and spiritual might asserted by the Otsutsuki. It was enough to make the very lower floors tremble. Every step there was a corrupting influence, such that Sasuke could only compare it to Jashin. Of course, this feeling wasn't even close to being compared to that time, but that it came from a mortal being was more than a little worrying. "Alright you two, I think my life is definitely in danger right now. You better not be all talk," Sasuke uttered. As soon as he said those words, the Uchiha found himself filled with nearly limitless power. His black hair turned a deep shade of silver while his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan brimmed with the power of the stars. Lamb and Wolf summoned themselves at his side. Ashiki stepped past the members of Akatsuki as he turned a gaze toward Sasuke. So Uzumaki Naruto had something of a backup plan. It seems he holds you in high regard. I wonder what expression he'll make when I deliver him your corpse, Ashiki said. Sasuke wasn't moved or perturbed by the threat. What he was perturbed by was the sheer amount of life force Ashiki seemed to have. Being imbued with the power of the kindred, he could see Ashiki's lifespan, which was longer than any being ever should have. If left alone, Ashiki would easily live for millions, perhaps even billions of years. One way or another, this guy had to die today. The Uchiha didn't waste a word. Instead, he grabbed his sword and charged it with lightning chakra. Wolf snarled, his giant mouth revealing its razor-sharp teeth while Lamb held her bow in her hand. The indifferent look on Ashiki's face slowly morphed into a sadistic, yet confident grin. Far off, Yuri's eyes widened as she looked off into the horizon from the room she, her sister, and Naruto had been sharing during their time of the cage summit. Her eyes narrowed. "Urine, did you feel that?" Yuri inquired. A frown marred her young face. She didn't turn to her sister for an answer to her question. She knew that her older sister had sensed it. They were both Uzumaki, but they were also more spiritually attuned to the world. There was no way they could have sensed what they did. They heard that Naruto had rushed off to take care of a grave matter, but his presence suddenly disappeared. It wasn't like he was on the other side of the world. They would have sensed that. He was just gone. The thought was worrying, yet they hadn't acted yet because they didn't wish to blow the matter out of proportion. Unfortunately, it certainly seemed like they should have. "Yes, I sense it. It's like a chaotic amalgamation of chakra, Honsho, and evil all rolled up into one. If we sense it, then there's no doubt that others in our family will sense it as well. We have to go investigate," Yuri claimed. Yuri nodded as she quickly pushed herself out of the chair she'd been sitting in. Yuri put her book down and her glare hardened. Worry filled both sisters as Yuri quickly turned to her younger sister. "Yuri, you're the fastest out of all of us. Head in the direction of that strange energy. I will inform the cage to prepare a force and head there. Assess the situation as best you can and warn us. If it is what we're expecting, then I doubt this force is gonna matter, but it's for the best." "Get going," Yuri said. Yuri quickly agreed and merged her spirit with Shizune and Ebisu. She then summoned her chakra cloak and her shinigami cloak. Her body was encased in a silverish-white spiritual fire that seemed ready to engulf everything. "Isobu-san, Shizune-san, Ebisu-san, are you ready to go?" Yuri questioned as she stepped onto the window ledge. "Stop asking questions you already know the answer to, girl. Get moving. The Sanbi retorted. Yuri nodded and blasted out of the window, breaking it in the process. She landed in the street, shocking nearby Iowa citizens and foreign visitors before she launched herself at great speeds beyond the gates of Iwagakure. Ordinarily, Yura might be worried about the damage to the home they were staying in, but now wasn't the time to be concerned with such things. Instead, she landed on the ground and raced toward the cage summit building. She was quickly allowed inside and appeared before the 5 cage. Please assemble a team of capable warriors and have them head toward these coordinates. There isn't much time, Yura claimed as she took out a piece of paper and began writing on it as quickly as possible. Kuretsuchi leaned up and slammed the table. Hey, just hold on a damn second. What the hell is even going on? She replied vehemently. First Uzumaki Naruto disappeared and now Uzumaki Yura was barging into the meeting. Something had to be going on and Kuretsuchi absolutely hated not knowing what. Tsuchikage Dono's crass language aside, I would like to have an explanation as well. Yura-san, what's going on? Mei asked, admittedly more concerned than the others. This was her family they were talking about here. Yura bit her lip for a moment. There's a rapid growth in malicious chakra to the far south. For whatever reason, Nisama has disappeared. I don't know where he or Kushina-san went, but none of that matters right now. What matters is that we have a threat to the nations and we need to deal with it. Just follow these coordinates and wait for Yuri and I to properly gauge the threat. Yura claimed as she jotted down the coordinates. Once she was done, she dashed outside, leaving the cage to scramble and prepare what forces they could get together. As soon as Yura stepped outside, she fell on her knees and exhaled slowly. The ground beneath her feet splintered before she was encased in the violet flames of the end and from her back sprouted 2 golden wings. The light from her body was a spectacle for all who saw her. She then blasted into the air and flew in the direction that her sister and had run off in. Nisama, where are you? Yura inquired as she flew off as fast as she could. She could feel the strange energy growing larger and larger with each passing second. Tsuyu and Shion gasped as the tunnel suddenly started shaking violently. The former helped the latter stay on her feet before she growled. That fucking Uchiha dipshit, that's gotta be him. What fucking mess did he get into? Tsuyu inquired. I don't know, but I can feel the violent, malicious chakra growing in strength. We have to hurry and get out of here. We also have to save as many people as we can before this whole place comes down, Shion replied. The redhead Uzumaki growled as the rumbling intensified. She batted falling stones and pillars out of the way. Yeah, well, fucking tell me something I don't know. Fucking damn it. Tsuyu growled as she helped Shion a little faster. The walls continued to come down as they walked up a flight of stairs. At some point, Tsuyu picked up Shion and ran up the wall when even the stairs started showing signs of crumbling to pieces. She took them into a hallway where they met a person. Hey, who or why, Guh? Tsuyu offered the person no chance to finish. She just threw a kunai and stabbed them in the head. That they were a fully conscious person was suspicious enough for her that they weren't one of the captured or hypnotized people. The person fell dead as Tsuyu carried Shion through the underground maze. As they are navigating the area, Tsuyu quickly spots another person who isn't a mindless drone and quickly subdues them. Tell us how to get out of here or so fucking help me I'll tear your damned arm off and shove it up your ass. She snarled out. She felt the person try and gather chakra into their body before she tightened her hold and broke their arm, making them scream out in pain. Do you really want to fucking test me right now? She asked. Quickly, the point was made and the person guided Tsuyu and Shion out of the underground through one of the numerous entrances. Tsuyu quickly knocked them out and panted. Fucking finally. Alright, you stay here. I need to head back inside and find that fucking limpdick Uchiha. He might need my help. Tsuyu exclaimed. Shion exhaled, feeling her chakra steadily return as she leaned against the wall. What about Itachi-san, Konan-san, and Neji? We don't know if they've found Amaru yet. Shion claimed. Tsuyu opened her mouth and closed it for a moment. Look, Femboy's competent and he's got 2 former S-rank criminals with him. Those guys know what they're doing. Instead, I've got to. Tsuyu paused as she and Shion noticed the sky darken. Red lightning flashed through the air before they felt the ground rupture beneath their feet. Both gasped when they saw an explosion in the distance. Of all the things Tsuyu was expecting to see, fucking Uchiha Sasuke in a full-bodied and armored Susanoo wasn't one of them. Sasuke-san, what's he doing? Shion inquired as Tayuya quickly stood up. She turned to Shion and snarled. Stay here. I need to see what that fucking limp dick bitch is doing. Before Shion could even say anything, Tayuya blasted off and headed in Sasuke's direction. She ran as fast as she could, gritting her teeth before she felt the dangerous mass of swirling energies gathering at Sasuke's location. Shit. 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 Come on, shithead, where are you? We could really use your help right now. Tayuya exclaimed. The redhead quickly took out her demon flute, feeling a shudder over her body the closer she got to Sasuke in the battlefield. Despair, anxiety, fear, anger, madness, and almost every other negative emotion that she could think of. She pushed chakra into her legs and flew over a ridge in the plains. As soon as she landed, she found herself watching as a man climbed out of the crater in the wall. The level of his chakra was monstrous, nearly matching the likes of Kushina. And, why did she sense Honsho inside him? That should be impossible. Tayuya turned her head and noticed the kindred in each of the Susanoo's hands. The left held wolf while the other held lamb. Sasuke stood at the center, his glare hard on the man. Fucking damn it, Tayuya said as she pressed her flute to her lips. She then immediately plays it, filling the area with her sweet sounds. Miteki, Genbu Sokyoku, demonic flute, illusionary warriors manipulating melody. Tayuya uttered as Sasuke and the kindred turned their heads in the direction of the noise. The man does as well before he noticed the three large doki come upon him. Each of them collapsed upon him, making the ground thunder with a trembling force as Tayuya slipped next to Sasuke. You just couldn't fucking leave it alone, could you? She asked with a grit of her teeth. The Uchiha's frown deepened. Keep your guard up. It will take more than that to deal with an Otsutsuki, Sasuke warned. He would have asked if Tayuya had managed to secure Shion, but he also doubted that the redhead would be here if she hadn't. He wouldn't say he appreciated the help, but it was nice to have someone else around. Of course, that didn't mean he could drop his guard. There was a crack in his Susanoo from a Shiki's punch that would have killed him had he not reacted fast enough thanks to the power of the kindred. A fucking Otsutsuki. Are you serious? Tayuya asked. Apparently, her answer came to her when her doki were blasted away, crashing into the plains as a Shiki stepped out of the crater in smoke. Tayuya looked at him, taking notice of his appearance. More specifically, she noticed his middle eye. It looks just like that bastard Conan had a hard-on for before he died. Oh right, that was her deceased cousin, Nagato. Cursing, Tayuya pulled her flute to her lips, playing it as the doki quickly got up to continue their assault. Ashiki looked at her and smirked. It seems there were more inferior creatures in my base than I had anticipated. I wonder how many are left. I take it that the both of you have an idea, Ashiki said. Sasuke suddenly gasped as, thanks to the power of the kindred, he gasped as he saw the premonition of death. Ashiki summoned 5 metal rods and hurled them at Tayuya. The young Uzumaki couldn't even dodge in time before she was impaled through, her body dropping dead. Acting quickly, Sasuke maneuvered the Susanoo to cover Tayuya. Hey, what the foo, Tayuya didn't get to finish before she shuddered as 5 metal rods blasted toward her, blocked by the power of the Susanoo. Sasuke scowled as he saw the crack in the right arm of his Susanoo. Ashiki narrowed his eyes while Tayuya felt her breath leave her throat. She hadn't even seen those rods move. If not for Sasuke, her head would have been blown through. Ashiki turned to Sasuke and smirked. Interesting, it seems you have predicted me, Uchiha Sasuke. No, not predicted. You knew I would target her. Did you perhaps see her death, Uchiha Sasuke? Ashiki inquired. Sasuke didn't answer. Instead, the Susanoo's right hand was coated in lightning chakra. Blue streaks of lightning sprawled over the ground as the roar of a wolf howled from within it. Ra! Sasuke shouted as the Susanoo charged at Ashiki. The Otsutsuki looked upon the blow before he charged as well. He threw his hand back and his fist clashed with Sasuke's Chidori. Tayuya covered her eyes before she placed her flute to her lips and continued her melody. The doki charged in with Sasuke, their large bodies pulsing with unleashed chakra. Sasuke snarled as he watched Ashiki parry his blow with his fist. The Uchiha then scowled when the Otsutsuki raised his hand and instantly impaled the 3 doki with black rods. The rods with such force that they blasted the 3 large figures away, sending them crashing into the ground while Tayuya sucked her teeth. Ashiki then turned back to Sasuke before his gaze slightly tensed when he saw Lamb maneuver the Susanoo's right arm. She pulled back her bow while Sasuke encased her arrow in the black flames of the Amaterasu. She then fired it at Ashiki. The arrow crashed into Ashiki's chest and blasted through his frame, sailing far off into the horizon as a towering explosion ruptured the plains and mountains behind them all. A pillar of Honsho flew into the air as the black flames of the Amaterasu swirled around it. Ashiki grimaced and swiftly jumped back while he clutched his stomach. A harsh scowl quickly replaced the confident grin on his face. He snarled as he looked down and noticed the gaping hole pierced right through where his stomach should be. He saw the flames of the Amaterasu burning his insides where the hole lay. He then glared at Lamb as she slowed her bow for a moment. "So, you're the threat. Just one arrow did that. Very well, Uzumaki Naruto. It appears that I might have underestimated you. To think you had someone like, in." Whatever his thought was, Ashiki didn't get to finish it as he noticed Wolf charging at him. Wolf opened his maw and clenched down, biting with enough force to tear through Ashiki's upper left torso. Wolf slid on the ground, growling at his enemy. Ashiki fell to the ground momentarily, allowing Sasuke and Tayuya took advantage. The latter pulled out a long paper scroll and wrote on it, infusing her chakra into her ink brush. "Try this on for size, you fucker," Tayuya exclaimed as she spread out the scroll and slammed her hands on the ground. Uzumaki Shinsei Fuinjutsu. Shigai no Deishodosu, Sacred Uzumaki Sealing Technique, a great collision of ideologies. Tayuya shouted as the seals on the scroll sailed along the broken ground and encircled Ashiki. Immediately, a river of black tar flooded the area. The tar stuck to Ashiki's body while the others noticed his body steadily begin to regenerate from the damage caused by Lamb and Wolf. Unfortunately, Tayuya cursed as she noticed Ashiki begin to stand against the flow of the tar effortlessly. He looked down and saw his skin melting as the tar rose higher and higher. However, Tayuya noticed that she had to keep pouring more and more chakra into the seal to keep him restrained. It reached the point that even her reserves were steadily being drained, something that should be near unlikely given her Uzumaki status. "Damn piece of shit. Just what the fuck are you? It feels like I'm trying to pin down my shithead of a patriarch," Tayuya thought to herself. Fortunately for her, Tayuya saw the sky darken as pillars of light broke through the sky and lightning angrily struck the ground. She looked up and smirked when she saw Sasuke hold the Susanoo's right arm in the air. A loud wolf's howl came through the air as the Uchiha's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan spun wildly within his eyes. Tayuya's eyes widened as she spotted Wolf descend from the skies covered in a coat of pure lightning. Sasuke's eyes darkened as he stared at Ashiki. Perish under the weight of the wolf's hunt. Daidobo no Fenrir, the great howl of Fenrir. Sasuke cast out as he forced the Susanoo to swing its hand down. Wolf howled with such great force that a fierce whirlwind blew the streets and rock formations in the plains away as he charged down toward Ashiki. The Otsutsuki stared at the attack wide-eyed until he noticed Lamb behind Wolf. She swiftly pulled her bow back before firing an arrow that swiftly split into 10 more arrows. Each tip was coated in the flames of the Amaterasu. The attack was instant and so was the destruction it caused. The plains were instantly blown away. The sky was rended apart and trees were ripped from the roots. For the first time since the revival of the earth, wide-scale destruction came upon the land. The explosion of lightning, fire and sealing tar was enough to nearly blind any mortal. Even with her eyes covered, Tayuya couldn't stop shaking from the anger of the ground, trembling as if it might be torn in two. Pillars of light roared into the air before collapsing in on themselves, each crash worse than the last. When the explosions finally settled, Tayuya slowly opened her eyes. What were once beautiful, perfect, pristine plains had turned into a desolate wasteland of unparalleled destruction. The young Uzumaki grabbed her flute and cursed. Shit, I hope Shion wasn't caught up in that. Tayuya quickly sensed for Shion and breathed a sigh when she discovered that her cousin hadn't been caught up in the explosion too much. That she was alive at all was a great thing. Okay, she's fine. Now how about? Tayuya turned her head and stilled when she immediately saw Ashiki standing before her. His form was as deteriorated and ruined as a sickly man on the side of the street. Yet, his body continued to regenerate. The cruel smirk on his face persisted as his right torso formed back. The scars and burns upon his body were quickly washed away. What the fuck is this guy? All of that did nothing. Tayuya inquired. Gritting her teeth, the young Uzumaki lunged at Ashiki. She swung her leg, aiming for his face. Yet she scowled when he effortlessly blocked the attack. The ground trembled from her blow as he grabbed her leg. Yes, you will do nicely, Ashiki said. Before Tayuya could even fathom what he was talking about, she shuddered as she felt the chakra and honsho within her body get sucked away. It was done with such rapidness that Tayuya quickly went into shock, gasping for air while Ashiki smirked. So stunned was she that she couldn't even register being whirled through the air until Ashiki slammed her back on the ground. A gob of blood spilled from Tayuya's lips as she groaned in pain. Ashiki then swung her body until he threw her away, making Tayuya crash into the ground, skidding and skipping across it until she slid to a stop about a mile or two away. She groaned in pain as the shock remained upon her body from being drained of nearly all her chakra. She gasped and clutched her throat. Her eyes rolled up in her head before a hand touched her chest. Immediately, chakra was shared with her, allowing the young Uzumaki to cough as she regained her breath. She looked up and stiffened when she saw Itachi and Neji standing next to her. Tayuya-san, are you alright? Neji asked. Do I fucking look alright to you, femboy? Tayuya asked as she rolled over in pain. Itachi quickly helped her up before the trio heard the explosion in the distance. Itachi and Neji saw the armor of Sasuke's Susanoo, the young Uchiha heir, unleashing a stream of white-hot fire over the desolated landscape. What happened? Itachi asked as Tayuya scowled. Fuck if I know. Your dumbass brothers gotten into a fight with the leader of this underground group, Kara. But that bastard's something else. We've hit him with a ton of shit but he seems to be regenerating. I sense a whole load of nasty shit from him that makes Orochimaru seem like the fucking prince of fairyland. All he did was touch me and nearly all my chakra got sucked away. Even the power the shithead claims I got from being so close to him was taken too. I don't know what the bastard did, but it's gotta be because of that box and that weird-ass serpent thing, Tayuya growled out. She struggled to her feet, staggering back until Itachi caught her. Where's the paper, bitch? Tayuya inquired. Konan-san is currently holding up the ground, to keep it from collapsing on those kidnapped by this organization. Amaru is supplying her with chakra, but I'm not sure how long they will last for. We should try and draw the battle elsewhere to give Konan enough time to evacuate everyone, but I'm not sure how, Itachi replied. Unfortunately, Itachi couldn't think further because the distant explosion distracted him. He looked up and saw Sasuke's Susanoo fire a massive purple arrow at Ashiki, only for the man to block it with his hand before he absorbed it. Itachi and Neji watched in surprise before the former stood up. Neji-san, get Tayuya somewhere safe. Sasuke and I will find a way to get him away from the area. If what Tayuya-san says is true, then it's not a battle suited for you, Itachi claimed. Neji frowned for a moment but nodded as he helped Tayuya walk. I'll return as soon as possible. Be safe, Neji said to him as he leapt away with Tayuya's arm on his shoulder. Itachi glanced back at the battle as Sasuke landed on the ground, dispelling the Susanoo until only its upper half remained. What the fuck are you doing? You need that thing to stay alive. Wolf howled in Sasuke's ear as the Uchiha watched Ashiki's body continue to regenerate. No, it's taking more and more of my chakra to maintain the Susanoo. No matter what, that technique we fired should have been enough to turn him to cinders. He took it head on, no technique prepared at all. Yet, I felt the technique decrease in strength. He can absorb chakra. It might even be done passively. The longer I keep the full body of the Susanoo active, the more chakra he's going to take out of me. I'll have to fight him with this, Sasuke retorted. His Sharingan could see the flow of Ashiki's chakra. It was like a never-ending torrent of swirling destruction, constantly being filled up by outside sources. The man's confident smirk widened, which only made Sasuke's expression darken. Wolf and Lamb landed at the Uchiha's side while Ashiki raised his hands into the air. I see. So each of you has a small portion of Uzumaki Naruto's power. I had assumed as much, yet all I had was conjecture. Now, I see that my assumption was correct. Chakra and this power that resides within Uzumaki Naruto. Perhaps if I keep absorbing them, I shall evolve even further than before, Ashiki claimed. Sasuke's eyes widened when Ashiki stepped forward, only to appear in front of the Uchiha instantly. Even the kindred were stunned as the Otsutsuki pulled his fist back and then slammed it against the ribcage of the Susanoo, breaking its armor and 5 of its bones instantly. Wolf growled and charged at Ashiki while Lamb fired 3 arrows from her bow. Simultaneously, Sasuke unsheathed his sword and charged at him. The battlefield immediately became a flurry of movements as Ashiki parried Sasuke's sword and stepped away from Wolf's powerful jaws. Lamb's arrows nearly pierced his chest until he swerved out of the way. Sasuke's sword cackled with lightning as he swung it over Ashiki's head. The latter grinned as he caught the sword between his fingers. The ground thundered as the young Uchiha heir and the Otsutsuki stared eye to eye. However, their stare-down was interrupted when Wolf crashed into Ashiki's body, taking a large bite out of his torso again, blasting through him much to Ashiki's surprise. His body already started to regenerate before Lamb came in from the side. With adept fingers, she launched 5 arrows into Ashiki's body. Each arrow glimmered with the power of Honsho, blowing the former monk's body into at least 10 different pieces. After that, Sasuke swung his sword repeatedly, cutting those pieces down bit by bit, the lightning chakra within his blade sharpening his blade even further than usual. He then jumped back and cast the Amaterasu upon those pieces. The Uchiha slid back as the kindred landed at his side. Lamb lowered her bow for a moment. It is strange. I still cannot see the mark of death upon him. He still lives, she remarked. Wolf nodded, smelling the wretched scent while Sasuke's Sharingan gave him a clear view of Ashiki's body continuing to form. This isn't working. In the end, we'll just tire ourselves out. We have to think of something else. However, I noticed something. He's taking longer to regenerate from attacks from the two of you. It seems that even though his body contains Honsho, it hasn't accepted it. He may be using the Honshu's power while the chakra keeps him alive. If so, then at least I can slow it down if given the time, the Uchiha said. The kindred looked at the Uchiha before they glanced at each other. After a moment of thought, the two slowly disappeared and settled back into Uchiha Sasuke's body, fusing their spirits to his. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan brimmed with diluted divine power. It was that power that gave him just enough time to tilt his head to the side as 5 black rods flew deathly close to his head. He slid away and growled before he noticed Ashiki already behind him. The Otsutsuki pulled his fist back before he launched it forward, his blow crashing into Sasuke's arms raised for a block. The air boomed like violent thunder before Sasuke was propelled away. Flipping through the air, Sasuke landed before he dashed at Ashiki. The latter grinned and dashed toward his opponent as well. A sword and fist rolled through the air as Sasuke swung with the full weight of the kindred behind him. His sword stabbed into Ashiki's torso, burning his insides with the divine strength of Honsho as the Uchiha ripped his sword through his enemy's body. The sickening crunch of sword against bone ruptured as Sasuke swung his sword up with such force that even the clouds and the firmament therein were rendered apart. Ashiki's body was torn apart, the sheer pain and agony running through his newly evolved body. That said, Sasuke quickly realized that he left himself open. He saw Ashiki's hand reaching for him but his body was too slow to fully react to the action. Before he could stop it, Ashiki grabbed Sasuke by his throat. "That's enough out of you, you inferior creature," Ashiki shouted as he slammed Sasuke into the ground. Sasuke scowled, feeling the overwhelming strength of Ashiki's hand on his neck. With a snarl, Sasuke activated the flames of the Amaterasu, burning Ashiki's body as fast as he could until Sasuke felt the kindred panic. "He's absorbing our Honsho. That's impossible. No mortal should be able to do that." Wolf snarled out as Sasuke indeed felt his chakra leaving him in droves. Ashiki looked down at him and smirked. "Fear not, Uchiha Sasuke. You will be the first of many. I grant you a swift passing for your help in aiding the evolution of the Otsutsuki," Ashiki claimed as his hand tightened around Sasuke's neck. The Uchiha growled, keeping the black flames on Ashiki's body before Ashiki found himself blown away by a kick to the face from Itachi. Sasuke rolled over and saw his brother standing beside him, holding his hand. "Are you a light, Sasuke?" Itachi inquired as he helped his little brother to his feet. Sasuke stumbled for a moment before he slowly nodded. "I'm fine. He's a tough bastard. Don't let him touch you. He can absorb chakra," Sasuke remarked. Itachi slowly nodded as he glanced at Ashiki, watching the Otsutsuki rub his cheek as his body continued to form. "Yes, I can see that. It happened to Tayuya-san. He took so much of her chakra that she nearly went into shock. I can also sense Naruto-sama's power within him. Judging by his actions, he's likely looking to collect more of it. He will be going after you, and potentially after me as well. That said, I believe you to be his primary target. You have the biggest concentration of chakra and Honsho, especially with the kindred residing within you. That said, it was still a good option to have them merge with you." I fear that on your own, you might not be enough to stop him. We'll work together. If I can strike him with the Totsuka blade of the Susanoo, then I can seal him in the Susanoo's sake jar. Provide me an opening, Itachi advised. Sasuke glanced at his older brother for a moment before he nodded. He stepped forward. I definitely don't like you telling me that someone's beyond me, but I've got no choice but to accept it for now. Don't bother with genjutsu. He seems impervious to it, especially given that third eye of his. It looks like the Rinnegan that Konan spoke about Nagato having. We'll have to get around that, Sasuke remarked. Itachi swiftly agreed while Ashiki grinned. Uchiha Itachi, rumors of your achievements have even reached my ears. I don't usually offer this to any inferior creature, but I will admit that you're a little different. Join me and become an Otsutsuki. Live forever as part of a nobler race. Refuse and you will be crushed just like all the others, Ashiki said. Itachi's gaze narrowed. I betrayed Sasuke and my clan once. It won't happen again, Itachi remarked as Sasuke flew forward with his sword while the older brother quickly summoned his own Susanoo armor. Ashiki heard the roar of a wolf as lightning sprawled out from Sasuke's sword. Shinra Tensei, Ashiki uttered calmly as Sasuke grunted in pain, and an invisible barrier bashed him. It flung him through the air before Sasuke sped through numerous hand signs. Kaden, Honsho, Hoshisenka no Jutsu Fire Release, Phoenix Death Flower Technique, Sasuke shouted, firing a myriad of massive white fireballs from his mouth. Ashiki noticed the balls of fire approach. He raised his hand, ready to absorb their power like all the others. Much to his expectation, he got some of it. However, he quickly realized that the power behind it was too much as he saw the manifestations of wolf within each fireball. Ashiki quickly activated his left eye and fired 10 high-seed rods into the flames. The rods were thrown with such force that they directly clashed against the fireballs thrown Ashiki's way. However, the Otsutsuki couldn't help but be surprised when his rods broke and the flames continued onward. He jumped out of the way, the ground becoming a burning hellscape of ruptures and flaming pillars. Ashiki dashed away from the flames, leaping over crushed rocks and desolate landscapes. Sasuke's flames raced over the area, making Ashiki grit his teeth. Even from so far away, the flames felt like they were trying to burn away the very center of his soul into nothingness. Once the Otsutsuki landed, he lifted his head and noticed Sasuke right behind him. The Uchiha raised his sword back only for Ashiki to raise his right hand and blast Sasuke away again. The former member of Team 7 grunted in pain. He then held up a hand sign and summoned his Susanoo. With the strength of lamb behind his bow, the Susanoo pulled back its arrow. The Suanoo then released it. The arrow blasted through Ashiki's torso, causing his body to rupture in a wheel of white and black fire. Ashiki grunted in pain, dropping to one knee before he saw Sasuke's left hand glow with lightning. However, much to his shock, the lightning passed through the hole in his torso. The smirk on Sasuke's face was all Ashiki needed to confirm before he heard Itachi speak. Yasaka Magatama, Amaterasu, Renseishuru Asiki, 8 sloped curved jewel, heavenly illumination, chain connecting ruin. Itachi claimed as Ashiki nodded the orange glow of the older brother's Susanoo. In its hands were 15 3-curved jewels wrapped around 5 orbs. Each orb was connected with a chain of Sasuke's lightning. Itachi then fired each orb toward Ashiki. The Otsutsuki screamed in pain as the curved jewels collided with his body. They tore at the ground before Sasuke flung his hand. Like a yo-yo, the curved jewels flew into the air, carrying Ashiki with them as thunderclouds boomed violently. Lightning struck the clouds, coursing through the chain of electricity that Sasuke created. With the roar of wolf behind it, the Uchiha swung the jewels down into the ground. Miles of land were instantly blown away in a pillar of black Amaterasu flames. Itachi and Sasuke covered their eyes for a moment, hearing the ground shake beneath their feet. Once it settled, Sasuke panted and dropped to one knee. He huffed for a moment and so did Itachi. The two looked on for a moment at the towering pillar of smoke and ash. Even the smell of burning flesh seemed to sting their nostrils. Yet Sasuke, with the power of the kindred behind him, saw no decrease in Ashiki's life force. In fact, Sasuke noticed the way he was moving. He was heading for Itachi. Shit! Sasuke growled as he stood to his feet and dashed off. He dashed off harder than he ever had. He dashed so hard that he jumped right through the thick smoke. Itachi! Sasuke shouted as he saw Ashiki's mangled body quickly regenerate, heading toward Itachi. The older Uchiha looked up, only to feel a sharp pain in his chest as his orange Susanoo was broken through by a black rod and plunged into his torso. Sasuke gasped before he noticed Ashiki turn around. Daihakoden, Great Box Heaven, Ashiki called out as Sasuke noticed a massively large black cube coming down upon him. It fell with such speed that he was forced to activate his Susanoo. He held the cube up, gritting his teeth as he felt another cube stack on top of the previous one. The Susanoo's legs buckled, sinking into the ground as Sasuke watched Ishiki's body continue to form. I will give you a point, Uchiha Sasuke. That one was painful. Had I not absorbed the chakra from the technique, you might have killed me. Unfortunately, the chakra is mine and so are your lives, Ashiki claimed as he appeared next to Itachi and grabbed the back of his neck. He then sucked all the chakra from Itachi, only to frown when the Uchiha disappeared in a puff of smoke. Ashiki's glare hardened before the Itachi clone exploded in a wall of black fire. As the flames continued to consume Ashiki, the Otsutsuki quickly absorbed those as well. After a while, he noticed that the entire field was vacant. However, Ashiki was hardly perturbed. He quickly concentrated his chakra and vanished in a blur of speed. Sasuke only heard a loud explosion in the distance before he saw Itachi crash into the ground in front of him. Ni-san. Sasuke snarled as he pushed more chakra into the Susanoo. Its massive frame continued to resist the nigh insurmountable weight of the black cube bearing down upon it. What was even worse was that Sasuke and the kindred could feel their respective energies being absorbed into the cube. Itachi rolled over with a deep groan, wiping off the blood from his lip. The two Uchiha brothers watched Ashiki land on the ground, his body fully intact. Do you have any more tricks? I suggest you use them now. Let me test the full extent of this new body of mine, Ashiki claimed with a sharp grin on his face. Itachi leaned up, huffing while he noticed Sasuke off to the side, the enormous black cube keeping his Susanoo pinned to the ground. Itachi was no fool. He knew he had no chance of beating Ashiki like this. Just one of those rods had enough force to tear through his Susanoo. He hadn't even had the time to form the Totsuka blade. Something told him Ashiki wouldn't give him the chance to form it either. He was clearly lording his power over them. Itachi could also use the Izanagi just like his mother had done. However, would that really change anything? He didn't mind giving up his sight for his little brother, but would such a stall tactic work in the long run? If Sasuke were forced to use the technique too, then they would have no one to help them. While Itachi was thinking, Ashiki's gaze narrowed when the kindred came out of Sasuke and landed on the ground. Wolf snarled while Lamb readied her bow. Focus on freeing Uchiha Sasuke, Uchiha Itachi. We shall hold off the abomination. The warning was that Uchiha Sasuke would lose his life. We must not let such a premonition become reality, Lamb said as she stepped forward. Itachi opened and closed his mouth a few times before he struggled to his feet. Do you have a way to get rid of him? Even with your immense strength, if you can't kill him, then he'll just keep siphoning off your Honsho until he likely absorbs the both of you. No one knows where Naruto-sama is, and Kushina isn't here. Should he absorb your Honsho, then there will be no one who can stop him, Itachi claimed. There was silence for a moment before Itachi noticed a sharp spike in energy. I think you're forgetting something, Uchiha brat. Our summoners got more than one knight at his side, Wolf claimed. Instantly, Sasuke and Itachi noticed a flash of light and a boom like thunder as Uzumaki Yuri appeared, her body wrapped in a chakra cloak of the Sanbi with a robe of Honsho around her. You wanna test the full extent of your body? Then let's see how many punches it'll take me until you turn into fucking paste. Yuri shouted as she slammed her fist into the back of Ashiki's body. Both crashed into the ground, hot steam and molten rock cracking the stone bed until a tower of magma flew into the air. Sasuke then felt immense relief when the massive black cube over him was burned to cinders in but a moment. He looked up and noticed Yura slowly descend from the sky, her golden wings floating her safely down. Sasuke frowned before a small smirk appeared on his face. I had it under control, he remarked. I'm sure you did, Sasuke-san. We're just here to keep it even more under control. Besides, I think Yuri needs this more than anyone else, Yura claimed as she gently swung a piece of golden fire over the two Uchiha brothers. Almost immediately, their wounds were healed as the abundance of the beginning filled their bodies. Sasuke and Itachi briefly inspected their bodies in wonder before they saw Yuri blast into the air. She quickly opened her mouth while Shizune and Ebisu flew out of her body and wove their hands around the black orb that appeared in front of her mouth. Wait, Yuri. Konan is holding the ground up. If you release that, it could collapse the entire area and cave in the civilians underground. Itachi alerted. Yuri glanced at him for a moment before she cursed and ceased the tailed beast bomb that she'd been set on creating. Urine, I'm gonna get that bastard out of here. Find some time to get those civilians and Konan-san to safety. Yuri quickly urged before she dive-bombed down until she fully crashed into Ashiki's body. Yura frowned for a moment before she chuckled. You're not a little girl anymore, are you, Yuri? Yura thought to herself before she turned to Sasuke and Itachi. She held up a hand sign and expanded her senses over the entire area. As expected, even sensing Ashiki was enough to make her body shiver, yet she remained on target. She quickly found Konan's unique chakra signature and in that direction. Sasuke and Itachi noticed Yuri land in front of them. I take it since Naruto-ni isn't here, then something must have happened to him. Either of you know where he is? Yuri inquired. Unfortunately, Itachi and Sasuke shook their heads. Concern quickly came upon Yuri's face before she noticed Ashiki step out of the ground. You wonder where he is? Would you like to know, Jinchuriki of the Sanbi? The Otsutsuki inquired, his body continuing to heal as he brushed the side of his face. Sasuke, Itachi, and Yuri immediately glared at him. The latter stepped forward, the strength of her cloak exploding. Oh, believe me, I'm going to enjoy beating the answer out of you. In the depths of the black void, booms like thunder raged over the area. The sounds of swords and fists were exchanged through the space in such rapid succession that no mortal could properly comprehend the depths of their magnitude. Naruto and Kushina landed on the ground, their shinigami cloaks flaring with strength. In the air stood Nanashiki and Nanashiki. The two Otsutsuki stared down at their opposition while Kushina narrowed her eyes. It's clear that they aren't letting us leave. Whatever's happening to Sasuke and the others, it seems that if we got involved then we could end it easily. That's why they're here. They don't seem keen on letting us teleport back either. They would just follow us anyway. To bring the battle to the elemental nations is asking for trouble. How are we going to get back there? Kushina inquired as Naruto and the rest of his summons thought on the issue presented to them. It was clear that beating them or outlasting them was impossible. They were like a malevolent force of nature, silent, powerful, and unyielding. They never went on the offense. They merely countered any plans or actions that Naruto and Kushina tried to implement. What was even infuriating was that not even Kagura, the princess of the Otsutsuki's main branch, had an answer for them. Sochi, I think you might have to summon the Shinigami. They warned us not to, but we have to change the paradigm somehow. Nothing is going to change unless we act, Kushina said softly while the glare on Naruto's face hardened. I know, but Kurama and Morio don't think it's a good idea. They could be expecting me to summon him. Unless they think that summoning Shin gives them the right to summon whoever is behind them. They seem confident enough in that it's a bad decision on our end. They've already stopped our attempts to teleport back. If we get back, Naruto paused for a moment before there came a smirk on his face. Kushina, Kurama, Morio, Kagura, and all the others noticed his smirk, a shiver running down their spines. And Naruto-sama, what are you thinking? Suirin inquired before she found her spirit merged with Naruto's. Immediately, Pakura, Dan, Kimimaro, Yahiko, and Gari found themselves taken as well. Yo, Kurama, Morio, Kagura, think you three can keep up with me? The blonde inquired as the three were immediately given his thoughts and his plan. Soon enough, the nine-tailed fox and thousand-headed dragon smirked. Kagura simply kept her gaze even, already supplying Naruto with the chakra required. Sochi. Kushina inquired. You know, Ka-chan. They spent so much effort trying to get us out here. It'd be a shame to leave so easily. Besides, this is a perfect opportunity to see how far I can go since Jashin. Don't you think so, Ka-chan? Naruto inquired. Kushina looked at her son, greatly confused before he grabbed her arm. Nanashiki and Nanashiki frowned as they watched until they raised an eyebrow as Naruto swung his mother and wife around and around, the force picking up in the depths of the dark realm they found themselves in. Kushina held her son's hand before she sucked her teeth and decided to go with whatever crazy plan her son had for them. Naruto grunted and flung Kushina toward their enemies with all his might. Nanashiki widened her eyes before Kushina crashed into her, plunging her sword right through her chest. She then swung her leg and bashed it into the side of Nanashiki's face, sending the Otsutsuki crashing into the darkness below. The redhead then ripped her sword from Nanashiki's chest and swiftly swung her sword over her opponent's body. With every swing Kushina felt, her heart pounding in her ears before she grabbed Nanashiki's face and flew her down. Both slammed into the ground as the markings on Kushina's face lengthened. Her eyes burned before she pulled her fist back. For the first time, Otsutsuki Nanashiki groaned as she opened her eyes. "One smashed tomato coming right up," Kushina exclaimed as her fist became coated in the white fury of Honsho. She then slammed her fist down, meeting her target and burying it into Nanashiki's stomach. What the fuck? Where did this power come from? Nanashiki thought until the ground exploded, pillars of silverish light. Nanashiki watched on before he gasped as Naruto planted his foot in his back. He then found himself crashing through numerous pyramid-like structures. Naruto then appeared behind him. "Fine, have it your way. If you won't let us leave, then we'll force you to let us go," Naruto claimed as he slammed his palm into Nanashiki's back. Shizenpo, Rasengan, Bakusuiaku, Death Sage Mode, Spiraling Sphere, Explosive Water Charge. The blonde roared as Suiren and Gari fueled their power through their summoner. A prison of water quickly encased Nanashiki as several water bubbles exploded within it. Naruto then jumped back and held out both his hands. In one hand, Kurama released the Bijudama. In the other hand, Morio unleashed a torrent of black fire. With their aid, Naruto fired both blasts from his hands while Kagura floated in the air. She opened her eyes and expanded her palms. Shinka, Hashira Taozu, evolve, cast down pillars, she cast out. Immediately, a massive ceiling matrix appeared in front of the blast and the tailed beast bomb. Both techniques crashed into the matrix, shattering it to pieces. Both techniques mixed together, their form like that of destruction itself, a myriad of cascading explosions sailed toward Nanashiki. His eyes widened before he was overtaken by the cataclysmic rumblings. Each crashed expounded on the other, breaking the very dark void they were all standing on into nearly countless pieces. Naruto then grabbed his sword as summons the powers of Pakura, Suiren, Kimimaro, and Yahiko, and Gari to his aid. Shizenpo, Uzu no Fukushu, Kage Bunshin, Chusen Uzubakushiku Honaden, Death Sage Mode, Whirlpool Revenge, Shadow Clone, 1,000 ultra big spiraling exploding steaming bone bullets. Naruto roared as he swung his body and his sword. From his sword flew out an innumerable number of water missiles, each filled with a bubbling, steaming bone. Each one flew into the sea of explodings. Instantly, hot steam boiled from the midst of their chaotic surroundings. One by one, each explosions wrapped around another, climbing into the air like an insurmountable tower. Naruto then charged inside the rending ocean, finding Nanashiki in its midst. He slammed his hand against Nanashiki's head while Kushina threw up her sword and bashed her fist into the side of Nanashiki's face. The female Otsutsuki grunted, trying to block where she could. "Don't get cocky, you inferior creature," she hollered as she threw her fist and slammed it into Kushina's face. However, the latter gritted her teeth and pushed through the blow, slamming her knee into Nanashiki's torso. She then grabbed her by the shirt and flung her into the explosions below caused by her son. Kushina panted before she flew into the midst as well. Nanashiki slammed into Nanashiki as Naruto and Kushina quickly summoned their chakra chains. They subdued both individuals quickly while Kagura came and touched their foreheads. Immediately, the scenery around them began to change as Naruto, Kushina and the two Otsutsuki found the dark void changing back to the vibrant landscape of the elemental nations. Black pyramids turned into beautiful, green trees. An endless ocean of nothingness turned into solid ground and dirt. Recognizing what their enemies were doing, Nanashiki growled and increased his power. A trail of blood slipped from Naruto's mouth as he struggled to keep them both pinned with Kushina's help. "You fucking maggots!" Nanashiki screamed at the top of her lungs. Unfortunately, Nanashiki and Nanashiki were an existence Naruto and Kushina hadn't encountered since Jashin. Their power flew to such heights that they began to distort the very fabric of reality around them. Even the chakra chains which bound them were burned away. Nanashiki grabbed Kushina by the throat and slammed her down while Nanashiki pulled his fist back. Naruto moved to intercept. Yet, as the blows were coming, everything suddenly stopped. The familiar, yet boundless power became known to them all. Immediately, Nanashiki and Nanashiki recognized their error. In the former's anger, she had not controlled her presence. Being who they were, they had to be very careful entering worlds and universes which could not contain their might. It would draw the eye of too many inquiring individuals. And, unfortunately, the one they wished the most to not reveal itself did just that. Followers of the false god, release your hands from my summoner and his wife while I continue to feel merciful. Fail to do so and not even the false god will be able to preserve you from me. Nanashiki and Nanashiki turned around. Kushina squinted one of her eyes while Naruto glanced to the side. They all bore witness to the steely, piercing, unforgiving gaze of the shinigami. Chapter 97. Quote, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea, by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Conan-san, how are you doing? Amaru inquired as she struggled to supply the latter with her chakra. She'd already expended some of it trying to heal the citizens captured by this mysterious organization. The entire cave was covered with sheets of paper as Conan rested her hands on the ceiling, pushing chakra into it to keep the tunnels from collapsing in on them. Sweat poured down the side of her face as she felt every crack and explosion up above. It sounded and felt like a war was going on up there. Conan's arms burned as she pushed even more chakra through the entire cavern. I have been better, Conan admitted as the cave shook and thundered. Her cloak was drenched in her sweat while Amaru continued to transfer her own reserves. As an Uzumaki, while her reserves were still impressive, they were easily the smallest of the entire clan, save perhaps Yukimaru. It was all due in part to her lack of physical training. The others had clearly warned her that she needed to take that approach more seriously. All she could do was grit her teeth and bear the strain on her chakra coils amidst the constantly growing demand to keep the cave up. None of the others even returned. Judging by the shaking and trembling of the ground above, it didn't seem like they had much time to help either. Conan exhaled a shaky breath, her arms burning as the weight of the cavern continued to press down upon them all. She felt every explosion making the ground even more unstable. Even the ground under their feet was starting to crack. Conan knew that if it broke then she'd have to supply chakra to keep everyone floating. Even with Amaru helping her, it was just too much chakra for even her to maintain for longer than a few seconds. Conan reasoned that she could try and upon a hole to the surface or Amaru could lead them out through the passageways, but Amaru wasn't conscious when they brought her here. She wouldn't know the way out. As for the hole to the surface, Conan had no idea where they were. They could be right under the battle right now and that was just a lot of death coming upon them. In addition to the innocent lives, Naruto's authority over the elemental nations would drop severely. There was no way people were going to put their lives in his hands if this turned badly. And she wasn't about to let Yuri's family down. Amaru-san, you should stop giving me chakra. We don't need you becoming even more sick, Conan claimed urgently. Her arms buckled as a trail of blood slipped from the side of her mouth under the immense strain. The cave shook, the paper all around them, falling to the ground one by one. Unconscious men and women rested around them. Amaru quickly shook her head, keeping her palms on Conan's back. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. You can't hold all of this up by yourself. If we die down here, it won't matter if I'm sick. We just have to hold on. Amaru exclaimed through gritted teeth as she found her reserves falling faster and faster. She was even struggling to maintain consciousness. They'd been doing this for the last hour. Her vision was starting to get hazy. Hell, they'd already taken 2 soldier pills. The exertion on them both continued to grow heavier and heavier. Conan was nearly forced to her knees as she struggled to keep the cave up. Quite the unfortunate circumstances you both find yourselves in. Conan and Amaru turned their heads and the latter quickly gasped when she saw her former master and the remaining Akatsuki members standing before them. As expected, they traversed out with Obito's Kamui. Conan's face immediately turned cold. Don't even think about it. You attack us now and this whole place is going to come down. Not even you can warp them out that fast, Uchiha Obito. Conan hissed as the ground and ceiling cracked as if a wave of thunder had just crashed into it. She quickly turned her attention back to the ceiling, aware that her attention had slipped momentarily from it. An earth-shattering explosion came down from above as Conan persisted in her endeavor. However, She quickly noticed that Amaru had stopped supplying chakra to her. She turned her head and cursed when she saw the broken expression on Amaru's face when she was confronted with the uncaring, cruel smirk of her former master, Shino. Her breath was stuck in her throat. 1,000 negative emotions threatened to overwhelm the redhead. Grief, confusion, sadness, and finally, anger. Amaru's red hair flew into the air as she shakingly stood to her feet. She fell back from her illness and chakra loss for a moment after. Amaru, not now. Conan warned while Amaru growled. Why? Tell me why. Why are you doing this, Shino-sensei? You saved me when I was sick. We've been treating people around the entire world. I followed in your footsteps, absorbed your teachings, took your creed, SSS shared in your burdens. Before I had my family, you were all I had left, my sole reason for LL living. Tell me why you're doing this. What did I do wrong to make you? Your voice is annoying, Amaru. It's actually hard to believe someone like you has the blood of one of the most powerful clans back during the Warring Clans period flowing through her veins. I suppose it's true what they say, fortune favors the naive. If there is one thing I have to thank you for, it's that you provided me with much more research than I had ever dreamed. Being a doctor for your clan gave me immense knowledge of your outstanding physique, even when you were blessed by the shinigami. Such results any scientist would dream of obtaining, and you so easily gave it away because of your foolish, misguided trust in me, Shino claimed as the grin on his face grew wider and crueler. You think it was the Akatsuki who came to me? No, it was I who went to them. For months, this has been our relationship. No, I should say years at this point. You see, Ashiki, the one known as Jigen, he will usher in a new world order, a higher world order. And I will be the one to resurrect our fallen nation, the Land of Sky. Did you truly think I would be willing to settle down with a nation that utterly destroyed mine? It was nothing personal before, Amaru. Sure, you were a sniveling, crying waste, but now you were a sniveling, crying waste from a renowned clan. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. And, when your clan and Uzumaki Naruto are crushed beneath the weight of insurmountable strength, the one they'll have to thank for their demise, will be you, Uzumaki Amaru, Shino taunted. Amaru gritted her teeth as her anger made her chakra surge. Tears burned down the side of her face. The harsh sting of betrayal wrapped around her like a coat she didn't want to wear. She clenched her fists. The chakra pouring from her body intensified her illness and her rage. Amaru coughed violently as blood spilled from her mouth. She stood up but her body shook. She dropped to one knee and slammed her fist into the floor. You fucking. Amaru sneered while Shino smirked. Yes, that was the expression he'd been looking for. It was such a beautiful expression, full of the agony and torture he'd always been hoping for. He held out his hands, ready for her to take the first blow at him, to give the Akatsuki a reason to retaliate. Yet, she just stood there glaring at him, hoping against hope that he'd burst into flames. Conan and the others watched the interaction. They all could practically feel the anger radiating from the young Uzumaki before she unclenched her teeth and put her hands back on Conan, supplying the latter with her chakra. You better pray to whatever god you wish that your plan works, Shino-sensei. If it doesn't, I'm gonna enjoy whatever Naruto's got in store for all of you, Amaru retorted. Yes, she was angry. She was angrier than she'd ever been in her entire life. However, she wasn't stupid. As Conan said, fighting them now would do them no favors. Plus, Amaru knew she wouldn't win. Her chakra was low and she was still sick. Even if she could take out Shino, she would only put Conan and the civilians at risk. Besides, it was all true. She had broken their clan law and told her teacher things that only family ought to know. She was very much guilty. Shino frowned for a moment. He finally grunted. Weakling, he muttered. Meanwhile, Obito's senses raised an immediate alarm as he grabbed Shino's arm. What the man gasped as a spear of lightning blasted through his torso. The regent, Zetsu, Obito, and Shino turned their heads when they heard a suck of the teeth. Looks like I missed. How unfortunate. Shino's eyes immediately widened while the regent's gaze narrowed behind his mask. As for Obito and Zetsu, they realized that they shouldn't waste any more time when they saw Sasuke and Itachi come out of the shadows, followed by Uzumaki Yura, shrouded in the gold and sapphire flames of the shinigami. You better keep your hand on them all, Obito-san. I could take all of you out the instant you don't, Yura warned, which deepened Obito's frown. Yura-san, be careful. They have the shinigami mask somewhere. Amaru warned immediately. Yura glanced at Amaru for a moment. Yes, she knew that. She knew because Sasuke had told her. It wasn't a great feeling to have either. She could get the mask immediately, but not like this. Obito would just pass right through her. She'd have to goad him into attacking any of them, and they all knew that he wouldn't fall for it. As much as it annoyed her, she had to let the mask go for right now. Soon realizing this, the tension in Obito's body eased. Quite the conundrum for this little thing, isn't it? The Uchiha asked, procuring the mask from his pocket. Sasuke's glare hardened, as did Yura. Uchiha Obito, that is enough. The curtain has been drawn on this act. It is time for us to depart, the regent claimed. For once, his jovial tone was nowhere to be seen. In fact, there was a glare from his eye that even made Obito shiver. The Uchiha wasn't sure why that was, but he understood where the regent was going with the matter. He stuffed the mask back into his pocket. Another day, Uzumaki Yura. Another day, Obito said before he used the Kamui and sucked the members of Akatsuki into his eye. The others watched him go before Yura spoke. Rin would be disappointed in you, Obito-san, she retorted. Her reply got her the reaction she hoped for when Obito glared harshly at her, his face quickly contorting in nigh uncontrollable anger. Slowly, the swirling vortex got smaller and smaller. Yura watched them go before she noticed the lingering gaze of the regent upon her. She wondered if she was seeing things, but she was sure she saw sapphire flames from a brief second in the eyes of the man behind the mask. Unfortunately, the portal closed before she could verify. Once the Akatsuki was gone, the others heard Konan groan as the pressure of the tunnels wore down upon her. Immediately, Itachi stepped forward. Come, Amaru-san. We'll get you out of here first, he claimed. Amaru vigorously shook her head. Don't. If I stop giving Konan-san chakra, she won't be able to hold up the cavern. It'll collapse on all of us, Amaru responded urgently. Itachi and Sasuke looked at each other for a moment before Yura stepped forward. She then swung her sword over them all. Konan and Amaru's eyes widened as they found their injuries healed. Even Amaru's illness had temporarily been pushed aside as her mind received a sudden burst of clarity. Konan found the strength to stand to her feet, the chakra strengthening through her core. Konan-san, I've given you a little boost. It won't hold forever, but it should do. Hold up the tunnels for as long as you can. I will focus on getting all the people out of the tunnels, Yura claimed. Despite the surprise of her sudden strength, Konan glanced at the young Uzumaki. How are you going to do that? There could be potentially hundreds or thousands of men and women trapped down here. None fit to even walk. Some can even be enemies. They will no doubt try to bring this place down if you... Konan suddenly paused when Yura's eyes burned with golden fire. Have no fear. I know what I'm doing. Sasuke-san, take Amaru out of the tunnels, Yura ordered. She then held up her swords and swung them. Immediately a wave of golden fire flew from her swords and spread out into the tunnels. The flames danced wildly, racing through every corridor and open room. Civilians, young and old, were awakened from their hypnosis as clarity was brought to their minds. Along with the clarity burned a subtle inner desire to seek the warmth that had ignited their bodies, souls, and minds. One by one, they stood up and walked. They walked through the tunnels, guided by the greater fire that ignited the lesser fire within them. Even enemies, almost compelled by some otherworldly force, stood to their feet and walked in Yura's direction. The explosions continued from above as countless people appeared. The caves had numerous entrances and sections. Even though some places were caved in, the intense network and transition therein enabled all to reach the same destination. Yura looked at the multitude before she quickly started to lead them out of the tunnels. Sasuke and Itachi followed her out, the latter holding Amaru in his arms as they journeyed out from underground. With Yura leading them, it didn't take long for the sky to greet the captives and captors. As soon as they stepped out, Yura turned to Sasuke and Itachi. With a nod, the two quickly subdued everyone with the power of the Sharingan. One by one, the multitude fell unconscious. They didn't even get a chance to speak or protest, their chakra subdued by the power of Yura's golden flames. Once they were all out, Itachi knelt in front of them. Konan, Amaru, and I will get them to safety, Itachi said quickly. Sasuke and Yura nodded before they raced back inside the tunnel. Only a few moments passed before they found Konan again. Everyone is out, Konan-san. Now it's your turn, Yura urged. Slowly, Conan agreed and lowered her arms, releasing the strands of paper that almost instantly began to fall to the ground. The tunnel shook with a great fury, collapsing in on itself with nothing to support it. Mysterious rooms, experimentation chambers, and secret libraries were all buried one after the other. Sasuke summoned his Susanoo. Its powerful arms caught the ceiling while Yura stepped inside its protective body. This will be a bit of overstimulation, Sasuke-san, but try not to lose yourself to it, Yura claimed. The Uchiha heir had no idea what she was talking about until Yura touched his back. So shocked was he that even his mouth fell open. X. Yuri roared as she fired her fist forward. She swung right for Ashiki's face before he suddenly disappeared. Her fist flew through the air before she slid on heels. Block, girl, Isobu shouted. Yuri quickly blocked, only to grit her teeth when she felt something collide with her arm. The force made her body shake before she was blasted through a row of trees. What the fuck is going on here? Can he turn invisible or something? Yuri inquired as she landed on the ground. Her heels dug into the dirt while the stinging sensation in her arms quickly healed. I don't know, but you have to be careful. That malicious energy is continuing to rise. You must take care of him quickly, Isobu answered. Oh gee, thanks. I never knew I had to do that. What do you think I've been trying to do for the last 10 minutes? He's like a damn cockroach. Yuri replied with a sharp snarl. Don't backtalk me, brat. You're lucky I'm even helping you. I do have better things to do. Isobu answered. Yuri stood to her feet and brushed her cheek. Damn whiny old man. Was every Biju a fucking whiner like hers was? Either way, she supposed Isobu did have a point. Of course, she had to finish the battle quickly, but she felt like was punching a damn speck of dirt. A speck that could dodge, grow, and hit back. Oh fuck this, Yuri exclaimed as she saw Ashiki approach, a confident grin on his face. Immediately she reacted as she caught 5 black rods, poised to take her head from her shoulders. She clutched them before she snapped them into pieces. Despite this, Ashiki didn't look particularly perturbed. I expected more from the Sanbi Jinchuriki. You're proving to be quite the disappointment, Ashiki taunted. Yuri's eyes lowered before sweeping the rods away. Funny, I was thinking the same thing about you. After all the horror stories Naruto ni told us about you guys, I half expected you alien guys to be the second coming of Jashin. Instead, I get you. You know, I heard the story about how Otsutsuki Kagaya betrayed you. Now that I think of it, I wonder if she let you live out of pity, Yuri responded. Instantly, Ashiki's eyes darkened. He then grew a cruel smirk. He sucked in his legs and swiftly appeared in front of Yuri. He fired out a kick that the Sanbi Jinchuriki effortlessly dodged. The force from the strike ripped trees from their roots. Yuri then clenched her fist and fired it at Jashin. The evolved Otsutsuki quickly disappeared in front of her again, but she quickly jumped back.